I'm going to transition from our little outline here and goes directly to that whole love question, because you mentioned that, the modeling of love. And I put on our little pre-notes, I said, Sister Tina Turner asked the proverbial question, what's love got to do with it? And you show exactly what love has to do, because you talk about something called radical, revolutionary, transformative love. Can you talk about that with our folks in the virtual pews? What's so transformative and radical and revolutionary about love?
First of all, it's radical to me and revolutionary because it's not natural, especially when it comes to choosing to extend yourself, your entire self, to someone who's hurt you, who's insulted. It's very difficult. So for me, the radicalness is having an ability to transcend all that is inside of you, and not let it hold you hostage and in bondage and keep you from choosing to love that person while fighting against the things that they may have been, surprisingly to most people, victimized by. Because the reality is that most people, we say it all the time, hurt people hurt people. There's a story and a narrative to how people get to these spaces and places of hate and looks like for some evil or injustice. They don't come out, of the womb that way. And so we can't forget that. So radical and revolutionary love understands first that we are interconnected, we're interrelated, that we are, as I said earlier, I think in the other session, that we are a part of each other. And we have a responsibility to use every resource we have to fight against the things that would seek to tear us apart, to destroy us as humanity. And my father called things like the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. It is really about putting your whole being into the work of dismantling those injustices and those evils, while at the same time extending yourself to every individual, including extending yourself to yourself. Because sometimes in the sake of choosing, because it's a choice, it's not this emotional love that we have, in romantic relationships, even in friendships or brotherly, sisterly type of relationships. But it's choosing to love the other person because they are a part of you. They're part of your humanity. They are, in my faith, they're made in the image and after the likeness of God. And you choose unconditionally to love them while still fighting against those other things.
Well, and I see the connection. It says you love past the hurt, you love past the pain. And there seems to be a connection, at least to me, with loving and forgiving. And one thing that we have made distinct is that forgiveness is not about not holding people accountable. And it's also not about forgetting, because we often want to binary those and somehow say yes. But it's also interesting, and I don't know if you've seen the documentary Mr. Soul. I've already given you 2 assignments.
Let me write that down. Mr. Soul.
I'll put them on your assignment list with your team. But there's also a documentary called Mr. Soul, and it was about a series back in the late 60s. Actually, it started in 1968 as a result of what was happening in the world, and your father's death and what was going on in the world was central to that. And it was about promoting Black folks just doing stuff, singing, dancing, having political conversations. But one of the things that was talked about in that is that what was radical about that is that Black people, since it was about Black folks, could love themselves despite what was happening on in the world. And that becomes radical when the world tells us that we are not worthy. That you can still love and love past that. So it's got everything to do with it, to answer Tina Turner, right? Love's got everything.
It has everything to do with it. It has everything to do with where we are, where we're going, where we must go. Yes.